You're fat, you're lazy, you have no self-control. Why don't you just eat less and move more? Do you realise what you look like? Being fat is being a victim to the last widely accepted prejudice. Barely anyone raises an eyebrow when comment is made about a person's size. In fact, most people laugh. Barely anyone will intervene and defend you. There are several widely believed stereotypes associated with being overweight, and they're wrong. In this video, I'm going to explain what's causing the obesity crisis, and believe it or not, I'm going to show you the solution. I'm going to show you how you've been given bad advice, told the wrong things, and followed the wrong science. If you're overweight, if someone you love is overweight, if diets have never worked for you, you need to watch this. Pretty much all of my life I've believed that fat people are somehow inferior. Physically, less capable, less desirable, less capable mentally. And pretty much all of my life I've been a fat person. But I've also had a sneaking suspicion that all was not as it seemed. And it seems I was right. Today, there are 500 million people walking around with type 2 diabetes. And that's not the end of it. There are also between 1.5 and 2 billion people who are pre-diabetic. And it's estimated that up to 90% of all expenditure on healthcare is spent on treating the effects of insulin resistance, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome with all its associated illnesses. Heart disease, stroke, blindness, Alzheimer's, dementia, depression, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, many cancers. All of them are associated with or arise as a consequence of insulin resistance. I got lazy, which made me fat, and I ended up with type 2 diabetes. That's how it goes, right? Wrong. I got insulin resistance. It made me fat and tired. Eventually, the insulin resistance turned into type 2 diabetes. The doctors aren't helping me to get rid of the insulin resistance. They're just treating the elevated blood sugar. Perhaps they think that fat people are stupid too, eh? Eventually, because the drugs that they're giving me aren't actually dealing with the cause, they will wear out my system and become ineffective. And then I'm defenseless. And then insulin resistance will find a way to kill me. As you can imagine, I'm a little upset about this. I wasn't planning to die just yet. But this is a worldwide phenomenon that, believe it or not, can be prevented. So what's going on? Well, in short, we've all become addicted to sugar. And sugar is everywhere. Well, that's not quite true. Sugar is not in fat. But we've been told to cut down on the fat, right? And eat plenty of fruit and vegetables. Have 5 a day. The trouble is that many of them are packed with sugar, and many of them we can't be bothered to peel, so we buy it pre-packaged, processed. When we eat something packed with sugar, our bodies resist. Our bodies depend on glucose to function. The brain alone, for instance, consumes 20% of all of our glucose intake, and the body is very adept at handling an influx of sugar up to a point. Here's how it's supposed to work. You eat a meal. The carbohydrates in your meal pass into your small intestine and are then transported to your liver. In your liver, they're broken down into glucose and pushed into your bloodstream. Any excess carbohydrates are stored in your liver as glycogen. Your liver has an ally, the pancreas. It's like a traffic policeman controlling and monitoring the amount of glucose in your bloodstream, and it will divert spare glucose into fat cells for storage until it's required at a time when blood sugar is low enough. It's a great system. But our modern diet, based on a lot less spear throwing and a lot less planting and digging up, and a lot more supermarket shopping and a lot more takeaway phoning, does not fit into this system as well. Food is always available, and much of it is processed and manufactured to keep it edible. And because we know that salt and fat are bad for us, right? We end up preserving it with sugar, and we love sugar. It's addictive, yeah? Well, actually, yeah, it is addictive. Added sugar is everywhere. In fact, I'm pretty certain that they know it's bad for us. Otherwise, why would they have, according to sugarscience.edu, why would they have at least 61 different names for the stuff? It's poisoning us in the quantities that we consume it. And we're advised to consume it by the people that we believe will take care of our health. So let's revisit that wonderful system of dealing with sugar, but now based on a modern diet. I'm not about to go on a rant about McDonald's 2,000 calorie burgers, although that wouldn't be necessarily unfair. I'm talking about an average diet consumed by an average person. There is a larger proportion of carbohydrates, which are sugars, in this meal, because carbs are good, right? They give us energy. And life today needs a bit more energy, right? Because the meal is so carb heavy and loaded with quick release sugars, alarm bells start ringing straight away in the body. The pancreas swings into action and insulin is pumped out in order to control the massive amount of sugar, glucose, trying to force its way into the bloodstream. The liver is busting a gut, converting sugar into glucose and glucose into glycogen. The body is stressed out and the levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, are rising. Now, cortisol loves to store energy in a quick release form in case the stress turns into a threat. So insulin also shuts off the liver's ability to turn glycogen into glucose, just in case it tries to flood the bloodstream to rid itself of the excess. Insulin creates more fat by signaling to those cells from before that it needs a storage facility. And it also switches off lipase, which is an enzyme that converts fat back into glucose, just in case it tries to empty out its storage cells into the bloodstream. Eventually, the emergency passes and insulin has done a wonderful job. In a normal world, insulin levels would then drop, the liver would convert stored glycogen back into glucose, lipase would be reactivated and able to convert the fat back into glucose to fuel the body. Everything functions. But then, lunch. It happens all over again, and again, and again, and again. And eventually the storage cells become a bit cheesed off with continually being asked to store fat. So they cock a deafen, they pretend not to hear, they become resistant to the signal from insulin to open the door. So welcome, you are now insulin resistant. Your body reacts the only way it knows how. It knocks louder. by pumping out yet more insulin. In doing so, it can cope with your blood sugar, and so far it's managing. Many of the fat cells are located near to the liver, and a spare tire of fat has appeared, which has slowed down the activity levels of the body. There's less need for glucose, less need for energy. Meanwhile, back in your liver, some of the fat is being stored actually inside the organ. It's only a little, so it's not too big of a problem. But the meals, heavy with carbs, keep coming, and snacks in between, and drinks with phenomenal quantities of sugar, almost immediately available to the body as glucose, keep appearing. Insulin levels rise and rise and rise over the years, trying to cope with the blood sugar levels. The fat cells become more and more prevalent in the liver. There's also a huge number storing even more fat everywhere. And what do the doctors do? They measure your blood sugar. They don't measure insulin. And it's just as easy to do so. If they did, they would know how hard the pancreas is having to work, and they would propose a solution. But they don't. Maybe they think people are too stupid to change their ways. Maybe they are. Maybe people are too stupid. Eventually, of course, the blood sugar levels do rise to a dangerous level, as both the pancreas and liver are overwhelmed by this tsunami of sugar. So they say, you're diabetic. And so they treat the high blood sugar by giving you your insulin an assistant, in my case called metformin, armed with a crowbar to force open those resistant cells for yet more storage. Their advice regarding diet: eat plenty of fresh fruit and veg. Avoid fat. Avoid salt. Use sweeteners. Switch to diet fizzy drinks. Try to walk. But there's no cure. Diabetes can't be cured. You'll have it for the rest of your life, but that's wrong. It can be reversed. Not just put into remission, reversed. And I'll explain that in the next video. Subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you know when I upload that next video. Thanks for watching. Chat soon.